2022. Going to call the school board meeting to order. Time's now 6:15 p.m. We'll move on to agenda item number 1, the adoption of the agenda as submitted. And this is for possible action, so public comment will be taken prior to any action. Do we have a motion? Motion by Mike, second by Don? Joe. Do we have any in-person public comment? Seeing none. Do we have any online public comment?
No, Mr. Varner.
Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. There's no nays. Motion passes. Agenda item number 2 is adjournment to closed session per NRS 288.2204 to discuss labor relations with the district management representatives, and this is for discussion only. And I'd remind the board members not to use any mics in case somebody's out in the hallway. Thank you. We'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Fueling. On April 12th, 2022. We're going to reconvene the board meeting to the public session. And the first agenda item is item number 4, flag salute, led by Stacy Wilkie McCulloch. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Move on to agenda item number 5, the superintendent's report. This is for information only. Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, members of the community. Just have a brief report tonight. Of course, we'd like to say to our community, to our staff, to our students, enjoy spring break. I know it was a time that was highly anticipated this year, and we hope everyone rests well and is safe in all of their activities. Then I'd also like to let our community know that next school board meeting, which will be on the 26th of April, will actually not be meeting in this room, but we'll be meeting at the gymnasium at Carson High School, where we'll hold our annual Educator of the Year celebration. And so that actually starts at 6 p.m. instead of the typical time of 7 p.m. So make a mark on your calendar to make sure you attend. And Mr. President, that's all I have tonight.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to agenda item number 6, board reports. And do we have anybody here from Carson High School? Seeing nobody here, it's spring break. Same would probably go for Pioneer Academy then. Seeing no one. Move on to the Nevada Association of School Boards update. We have one?
We have nothing at this time, other than most of us attended the NASB conference, obviously, and found some useful sessions. So hopefully we'll be able to implement some of those things.
Thank you. And before we move on, I'd like to let everybody know that Lupe Ramirez is joining us by telephone tonight. We'll go ahead and move on to board reports. Mr. Cassiopo?
None tonight.
Mr. Walker?
Yeah, just a few things from Mark Twain Elementary School. So the choir and band will be holding a spring concert. And Mrs. Clario just wanted everybody to know that the PTO fundraiser that they were holding for Kindness for Chris, they did really well. And then the 5th graders actually had a penny war contribution for that same fund. So I think they're going to be able to support that family quite well, which is great. And their students are currently working on PBIS SEL curriculum project, and students are eagerly earning feathers as rewards for their progress, I guess. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Stacy?
From Empire, they joined up with Wild Horse Theater on April 4th and had a mini musical, which was well attended by all. We met with Parks and Rec last Tuesday, going over budget recommendations to the Board of Supervisors. There are going to be a couple parks that they're going to close and take out playground equipment and make it just a walking park. There's 2. And then the library is starting their first bilingual story time, April 27th from 2 to 3 for 5 and under. And then I have an advisory council for family engagement meeting on Monday.
Thank you. Don?
Just a couple things from Dr. Lee Conley at Eagle Valley Middle School. Curricular planning and planning for physical and class adjustments continue for the opening of our new edition next year. And then just lastly, he wanted to announce a fundraiser for Childhood Leukemia Foundation. The kids can skip their SSA on Friday, April 22nd. So a week from this Friday, they can give a donation that goes straight to the Childhood Leukemia Foundation. And that's all he has.
Thank you. Laurel?
No report tonight.
Thank you. Lupe, you have a report tonight?
I do not have a report this evening.
Thank you. And I have no official report tonight either. Spring break, naturally, this week. There's quite a few Carson Middle School students who are in Washington, D.C. now, seeing the sights back there. They left early Monday morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30, and they'll return on the 19th, or this Friday. So hopefully they're having a good time seeing a lot of the sights back there. And that's really about the only report I have tonight. Thank you. We'll move on. Any reports from associations tonight? Seeing none. We'll move on to public comment. Comments will be accepted in person or through virtual participation via email. Comments may be made by members of the public on any matter within the authority of this board. Please note that public comment will be taken on items marked for possible action before action is taken on such items, and members of the public are encouraged to comment on such items at the time they are being considered. Although members of the board may respond to questions and discuss issues raised during public comment, no action may be taken on such a matter until the matter is placed on an agenda for action at a meeting of the board. In making public comment, speakers are asked to come to the table or podium, sign in, speak into the microphone, and identify themselves for the record. Speakers are instructed to limit their comments to no more than 3 minutes, regardless of whether the comments are made in person or through virtual participation, and to not simply repeat comments made by others. And this is for discussion only. Is there any public comment, in-person public comment? State your name for the record, please.
Mary Eaton for the. I just want to thank all of you guys for being on the board, for representing our students. I am a mother of 3. My oldest graduated in 2020. My second oldest is graduating this year. She has a disability. She's graduating with a 3.8 GPA. She made her academics on a couple months ago. And I just want to thank every one of you. I voted for you guys, and I just want you guys knowing that we as parents stand from behind you guys as parents too. I know each one of you are parents, and it just disgusts me that people who are not involved in the schools come and voice their opinions, and it just irritates me. So I wanted to take tonight to come down here and thank each one of you for your time and dedication for each parent, PTA, school. I, as a parent of a PTA member, am stepping up this next year and running for either president of Carson High PTA or one of the boards, because I feel that it is my need as a parent to help one another in striving our goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have one sign-up sheet here. Marianne Humphrey.
Marianne Humphrey for the record. I'm going to be in contrast to what the parent just said. I'm just voicing my opinion. Being here last week, it was very disappointing because it seemed like the majority of you had already made up your mind before we had any public input, and that wasn't the purpose. It was supposed to be listening to what the community was, and I know you had a whole bunch of teachers here, and nobody was attacking Fueling or the teachers or anything like that. It was trying to get someone who could best lead the school district to improve from 28. And I feel that 4 of you originally voted for Dr. Goldhart, and then last week, everybody thought Mr. Fueling would be a better choice, instead of trying to see what you could get with someone who had superintendent experience. And that's the biggest issue for me, is having someone who has the experience to lead a school or a school district and make it better. And it was very disappointing to come and not be open to listen to what the community wants, decides what the teachers, because they're all going to go for the school district. So that's all I really have to say. I just am concerned with all of the kids. I don't have anybody in the schools, but I am concerned that I want our kids in general to have a wonderful education so they can go and compete everywhere and be educated in the important things, not CTR, which I don't know if you guys are teaching or not. I hope not. And not transgender ideology, because those aren't things that our kids shouldn't be taught. They should be taught science, history, math, and reading, and everything else, so they can compete in a world and do well and succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason, come on up. State your name for the record, please.
Jason Tingle. I like how there's no teachers here tonight. I would like to know who sent out emails, and I'm going to put out a FOIA request because nothing went out on Parent Square to the parents for them to show up. Where were they before? Where are they now? They're not here. So I think that's pretty fantastic. Mike, you and I have a few things to talk about. So, first of all, your comment about the hospitality, that was disgusting.
Hey, Jason.
Disgusting for
Jason.
you to say that.
Jason, let's not attack any person. Let's address.
I'm not attacking him. He's the one who attacked
Well, it sounds
every
like
parent
it
in
to
the
me, so-
hospitality industry.
Let's
So,
address your comments to the
with
board,
that
please.
with that said, the proficiency scores are basically straight out of the Carson City district that I had put up to 70% of our children who are not proficient. I don't know where you get off saying that it's the education level of parents, or if you're referring strictly to me, because I was one of the very few people who brought up stats. Anytime you want to take an IQ test, we can do it together. I think that was absolutely wrong for you to say. Disgusting. Where are the parents today? Where are all the teachers today? Nobody's here. Mr. Fielding, I'm sure, is a great, nice guy. We want to change for a reason. Look at our scores. They are hideous. And that is not the fault of the parents when they spend 8 hours a day with our teachers. 8 hours a day. This board had their mind made up before we even walked in here. The only person I saw say anything to the latter was Stacy, who was, again, attacked for putting out her opinion on that. You guys, people don't show up to these meetings because they don't feel like they're represented by any means. This is not right. This is not fair. You're not listening. I told you I'm going to expose it, and I promise you I will. Once again, those comments, I'm giving you the rest of my time. Would you like to answer them? I didn't think so. I wouldn't want to answer them either.
Any other public comment? If there is, please come forward and state your name for the record.
At the last board meeting, there were 2 email comments that was read by Renee, and they were identified as anonymous. They were school district employees, staff. So I would like to ask the board why it's a different rule for people coming here in person have to state their name and for the record, but email comments are read as anonymous. Think about that. This is anonymous. This is a long list of classes that was approved by the Family Life Committee since 2016. There are about 18 of them. These classes were approved by the Family Life Committee and by their bylaws should have been approved by the board. This was brought to Trustee Varner and Trustee Cassiopolo last year. And in fact, in the minutes of the October 26th board meeting minutes, Trustee Varner confirmed that these classes were not approved by the board. These classes do not have textbooks. They are taught by soft media, videos, handouts, presentations. There is a class called Transgender 104 that was approved in April of last year. And you may have seen this gingerbread man picture in the TV. It talks about gender identity and how it conflicts with the biological orientation and the gender expression. Gender expression is how you dress. So these classes need to be approved by the board. And we also need to find out, there is confusion whether there is opt-in or opt-out for the parents. I know of one case where the parent, who's not here today, he did an opt-out, but his child still went through the same sex education classes. I urged the school board to put this item, Family Life Committee bylaws, and specifically these classes to be approved by the board at the next meeting as ASAP. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Jessie Tingle. I would just like to say that I didn't go to college, but my kids are all well above proficient in their testing scores. So there's that for you. Also,
We'll start it over, I'm sorry. Thank you.
do you want me to start out over what I said? Okay. Also, I would like to address the first parent's comment. You should be thankful that there's people who care enough about our children. They take time out of their day. Every single school board. Every single school board.
Jesse, would you please comment
It's
to the board?
public comment. I can say whatever I would like. Thank you.
Address it to the board, please.
'Kay, well,
Not to a person in the.
That was unfair of her to say, and she needs to know it.
Okay, move on, please.
I'm appalled about last week. I think that somebody is a bully for how they talk to people. Stacy, I think you did a wonderful job with what you had said. Thank you for that. And yeah, sorry that I'm not smart enough for you.
We'll reset the timer. Any other public comment, please come forward. State your name for the record, please.
Oh, do I have to? I mean, no one else had to last week. And the reason I didn't speak last week is because of the intimidation with the teachers, because I didn't want my child to have to suffer like my daughter did if you go against what they have to say. And I'm only talking one teacher, because most teachers are amazing, and I am happy with most of the teachers that my child has. What I'm unhappy with is the way all this went down. And no one calls out anyone when they break the open meeting laws. And the fact that you keep telling us not to call people out, Stacy is wonderful, but there are two people on this board that could care less about parents and about our kids. They cost them $10,000 with the money that was spent with NATSB. Okay? And set us up for a lawsuit when you have someone, a bully like Laurel and Michael, who decided that they were going to accuse Dr. Goldhart of things that they could not prove. So are they going to be personally responsible for any lawsuit that comes to the school? Because that would be nice. This is ridiculous how this went down. It's nothing against Mr. Fueling. It was the fact that two people went against the entire community and everyone else on this board. And you should resign and be ashamed of yourself, the one who never looks up at a parent. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Karen, come forward, please, and state your name for the record.
Good afternoon. You all know me, but today I'm anonymous.
Could you state your name for the record?
I'm anonymous.
Okay, Karen Stevens, thank you.
Okay. Well, you know my name because I've been here almost every single board meeting for the last year. You know why? Because I care about the kids. That's why I keep coming. I don't feel like coming. I want to sit home and pet my cats. I don't want to sit here and beg you not to put masks on our children, muzzle them so they can't look at each other's faces. In spite of the line of doctors, nurses, EMTs, other medical professionals that came in and testified against the masks, you guys did it anyway. And you wonder why they're mentally disturbed now. Because they've been tortured for a year. It's unbelievable. And then we're called on the carpet for coming and trying to educate you people about how harmful that was. It's just very disturbing. So I'd like to let anybody know that's watching this, if they're tired of the government school game, Light, Truth, and Intelligence is hosting their first annual Northern Nevada Home Education Conference on April 23rd, 2022 to support homeschooling parents in providing high-quality, family-based education of leaders with strong values and character. It offers an array of classes and extracurricular activities for children and training and support for homeschool parents and community members. It's from 9 to 4 at the Shine Church. And again, it's on April 23rd. And I just would really recommend parents that want to make sure their kids have a quality education with home values, that they consider going to this conference and looking into how they can homeschool their children so they're not forced into the next mask mandate that's coming this way, or being pushed into taking an experimental jab that causes all sorts of injuries and death to children. So that's it for today, but Anonymous will be back in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close in-person comment. And we'll go on to any online public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Varner. This comment is from Robert Harris. Social change, social movements, activism, civil disobedience, hunger strike, marching, cyber warfare, power, call to action. These words are all in an English 3 class at Carson High School. Empowering the Black movement, zigzag roads to rights. What to the slave is the 4th of July. Harvey Milk's fight for LGBTQ rights. Unbroken focus on protest against power. This is what children are reading in English 3. No wonder I'm getting zero cooperation in reviewing books from the district. This list of reading materials was not on any syllabus. The public was told that everything the district is using is state approved, so we shouldn't be concerned as parents. Some of this material violates the district bylaws. When Mr. Milk was alive, it was the only lesbian and gay. When did he support the other letters? I thought the district wasn't supporting or encouraging materials related to being homosexual. What motivates people to respond to the need for change? How do people respond to those in power in order to affect change? Has the nation achieved the change that people desire? These questions are asked in English 3. On March 22nd, the public was told by a board member, and I quote, "We've spent the last year and a half defending that we're not teaching critical race theory in our schools. The item that we've been described is what critical race theory is. Any book that promotes a power based on the color of skin is racist. I would suggest spending more time in the schools, and you will find more of this content. We have a serious disconnect with how prepared our future Nevadan workers are. You call in teachers who think everything is great, so they want status quo. We as a community will not have better job-ready graduates until the school board actually enforces academic standards and pushes back against the legislature and unions. I understand some of you have a vested interest in the teachers' union as you are married to union members or are related to union members, so the community and public at large know where your loyalties are. This is a conflict of interest because of unconscious bias and personal interest. Mr. Harris attached a copy of material for any board member who's actually interested in reviewing it and actually wanting to not teach critical race theory in Carson schools. The president of the board was sent a copy, and the principal of the high school can tell you what teacher is exposing the children to this material. I've also attached a copy of the material for public record. This next comment is from Barb Mathers. The division created by those in attendance at the meeting on April 6, specifically the staff supporting their blue, was really disheartening. To show up in mass in support of the manipulation, slander, bullying, and hypocrisy that was displayed at the meeting on March 22nd is incredibly frustrating. Staff members separated those in attendance into two categories. These community members, which I will refer to as blue teachers, and the angry parents who have been attending meetings in person, as if we weren't all a part of the same community of Carson City. Susan Squires, a principal, said, "We need to listen to our community. These people are our community. Mr. Fueling is your community. At the soccer games every weekend, at the baseball games every weekend. He is your community. He is going to be with these community members who make the difference in the schools." I shared in my public comment that I wanted the board to vote with the majority of the community, and I got a lot of guff from the blue teachers because they felt they are the majority, showing up in mass in matching colors. Majority, as is in the majority vote of 4-3 in favor of Dr. Goldhart. The majority of the community of people who live in all of Carson City. The majority of the staff and teachers who won't speak up because they are afraid to lose their jobs. The blue teachers' co-workers. The members of Carson City's community who are local business owners and are interested in the future of our graduates as potential employees, that majority. The taxpayers who are counted as your community when taxes are due and the money is used for our district, but not now. I also heard a lot of teachers complain about the members of our community who are involved in the school board meetings and don't have children in the system. Instead of being angry about that, blue teachers, why don't you ask them why they are so concerned about our students, even though they don't have students enrolled in school? That's a better question. And to further blame the parents on the level of education of our kids is insane. Mike shared the following in the meeting. Yeah, there's a lot of ratings for states and their education, and there's a lot of factors that teachers and principals and superintendents can't control. Most of those ratings revolve around the education level of parents and the quality of their jobs, which in a state like Nevada, which has a huge hospitality workforce, we're always going to battle that. And then you couple that nobody in this state wants to pay taxes, and we don't have underfunded education system. We don't need more money. We need parents and teachers to work together for each and every student. Here's another plug for cameras in the classroom. We need accountability for what is being taught in the classroom. We need transparency. We need members of our entire community to show up in support for our kids. And for all of those at home watching these meetings or getting your updates about what goes on here from the super biased articles in Carson Now or The Appeal.
Would you put the rest of her comments in the record, please?
Yes, Mr. Varner. Let me. Mr. Varner, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no more online public comment, we'll go ahead and close public comment for this evening. We'll move on to agenda item number 9, presentation and discussion of the tentative budget for the Carson City School District for fiscal year 2022-2023. Mr. Andrew Fueling will make the presentation, and this is for discussion only. Thank you.
Good evening, trustees. Thank you for having me back. This evening, we will be discussing the tentative budget for fiscal year 23, which is the next school year beginning on July 1st. The fiscal year. I just killed the screen. Oh, there it goes.
Get it back on now, thanks.
Sorry. Okay. And sorry, the school year does not begin on July 1st. I don't want to put fear into children. The fiscal year starts on July 1st. So each year we have to put together and present a tentative budget. This budget is very much in line with the longer presentation that I gave at the March, forget the exact date, sorry, the first board meeting in the month of March. So where we are timeline-wise, we've received preliminary revenue projections from the Department of Taxation. That again was highlighted and read at the last meeting, just to note that this has really changed because this is really not important to projecting revenues anymore. All of the taxes, all of the property taxes, local school support tax, all of those locally generated revenues, we no longer receive those. Those all go to the state. Then today, we are presenting the tentative budget. As President Varner stated, this is an item for discussion, and input is not for approval. On the 15th, which is Friday, once we have finished here, I'll be submitting this to the Department of Taxation to meet our requirements. A little bit later in May, we'll have the budget hearing at the board meeting for the original final budget, and then we have to get that to the state by the 8th of June. Oops. So again, as we've discussed, average daily enrollment and the adjusted base per pupil. So this is our hold harmless amount as determined by the state. And this again is about 99% of what we received per pupil in the 2019-2020 school year. So now it'll be three years prior. And so you multiply the number of students by that adjusted base, and you get about $59.5 million. There are some other categories of PCFP funding, pupil-centered funding plan funding that are added in. We have some other local and federal minor federal revenues that get included, and altogether that is about $67.7 million in general funds for next year. So what does that represent? So there are four, just to know, there are a reduction of 4 teaching positions for next year. That is not, that is through retirement and really just based on enrollments in the district. So as you know, at the elementary level, we are held to class size reduction ratios of either 22-1 or 25-1. And due to changes in enrollment, there were 4 positions that were not filled for next year as teachers have retired out. So all the increases in step and column within the salary schedule. This does not include the impact of collective bargaining, the document as it stands. It does include a 9% increase in the cost for health insurance. That is what we negotiated for a maximum increase that would be possible for the next insurance year. PERS continues at 29.75%. That number could change in fiscal '24, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. Known movements of staff to other funding sources, that there is always some change that happens year to year. Known adjustments for current retirements or resignations, the impact of those is built into this, although I'll say we are still early in that process. Known adjustments for enrollment changes at each of the schools, and really that's the 4 FTE at the top there. And then also with ESSER. So this will be updated again with most of the federal grants in the May budget as we start getting totals from the state and from the feds of what we expect to have. We are extending the learning loss positions that were brought in this year into next year. So there's really not a lot of change within that. One of the items that has been added is retention bonuses, retention incentives for staff. As you know, we have many vacancies in the district, and the hope is that while there are many districts and entities offering hiring bonuses, the example I would use is Washoe County School District. Washoe County School District is offering $2,000 bonuses for any new bus driver that will come into the district. And they started this school year down 50 bus drivers, and they are now down about 90. So the hiring bonuses don't seem to be making as much of a difference, but I think it kind of underscores the importance of trying to keep those that you have on staff. And so hopefully this over the next 2.5 years will help a little bit with that for the district.
AJ, do we have a round number or something for retirements yet?
Total retirements we're expecting? I would say at this point, we've probably have about 15 to 20 total, I think. But we're truly, the high point of that usually doesn't happen until letters of intent are due. I believe it's the second week of May, and that's kind of where a lot of that shakes out. And then ultimately, too, whatever that number is, we always have additional that happen during the summer. And part of that, I think, we'll need to consider is the whole critical shortage declaration that we've made in prior years for like special education teachers and special ed paraprofessionals. I think we're going to have to consider some of that as we do approach May and we start seeing those numbers of retirements and resignations. And depending on how applications are coming in for those jobs, it's something we may need to consider to try to help support filling some of those positions that we're just struggling to find people for. I think in a given year, there's usually about 30 to 40 retirements. I mean, and there's also just resignations, people moving on or moving to other districts. But I think that number seems about right to me historically. Let's say 30 to 40. Okay. So on the non-staffing side, we've reduced budgets there by about $1 million overall. And one thing to note, a couple of years back, the Chromebook purchases were moved out of the general fund to create savings, and grants have been able to pick those up for a number of years. So we do have scheduled next year, as approved by Department of Education, to purchase our next round of Chromebooks for 6th and 9th graders for the next year.
Hey, AJ. Yep. When you say, State Board of Education approved that, but that Chromebooks are grant funded, I want to make sure they're.
Sorry, so.
Why do we care if they approved it if they're not funding it?
Right, sorry. So the Nevada Department of Education, so the ESSER grant, like all state and federal grants, ultimately before we can spend those funds, we need to have them approved by the Department of Education, by their grants management unit. So we resubmitted our ESSER 3 budget a couple months back with modifications that, so what's strange about the ESSER grant, actually, in terms of what we know of other grants, is this money is available not only in the current year, but it's available in fiscal '24 and fiscal 23 and fiscal '24. We're in fiscal '22. I'm getting ahead of myself. So it's available to be spent in fiscal '22, fiscal '23, or fiscal '24. And NDE has asked us to budget out that entire spending over the coming years, which we've never had to do that before, so that's been a bit of a practice. But the point being, one of the line items that we included in that ESSER 3 grant that has been approved by the Department of Education is putting a line item in there actually for Chromebooks for fiscal '23 and for fiscal '24. So I guess the bottom line is we can use our ESSER funds for those, and that'll take care of the next 2 years to make sure that we can replenish at 6th and 9th grade to cover those costs. Does that help? Sorry if I was.
Yeah, I was thinking about it from a state level as opposed to, say, where the grant's coming from. I was trying to correlate the feds versus the state versus us getting Chromebooks.
Yeah, so for the ESSER grants, there's guidance as to what are allowable costs, but ultimately the state, there's not many grants that we get direct from the feds. The last large one was Race to the Top. Actually, that one the state had no involvement with. So we were reporting and requesting funds straight to the feds. But almost every other federal grant we have ultimately is managed through the state. And they have obligations for monitoring that then come down to us. So, yep. So the tentative budget ultimately meets a statutory obligation for us. By turning it into the Department of Taxation, it allows them time to review kind of preemptively and make sure that all of their requirements are being met, all statutory requirements are being met. So again, I'll be turning that in before Friday, actually tomorrow. So very likely at this point, a worst case scenario of about a $1.2 million deficit. If you recall at the meeting about a month ago, that number was about 1.5. So as we are starting to see turnover coming in and adjusting for new staff coming in, and as we continue to look at operational areas where potentially we could save funds, that number will continue to come down. I would expect next month when I come back to you in May with the original final budget, that number will most definitely have come down even more. Actually, this evening as you receive the retirements and resignations that are coming through the district, I have not updated yet with those folks, so I know it will continue to fall. One thing I wanted to mention, just because it's incredibly frustrating and it's very impactful. So the ending fund balance sweep, which we've talked about for years ad nauseum, and I kind of went through this some months ago with what I thought was a final answer. I guess, first of all, the budgeted ending fund balance, as we have initially been explained from the Nevada Department of Education, we are under the 16.6%, so we are good. We don't have anything to worry about, and that would be the goal in any budgeting process. Ultimately, the budget that they are, our understanding that they will be looking at is the December budget, so the December amended budget for fiscal '23 when we get there. But there's been some scuttle going about how there may be contradictory language between the original SB 543 bill in 2019 and then the 2021 bill, SB 439, in how that would be interpreted. And this is something just really in the last week that I've heard come up. So the CFOs from the districts are trying to find out exactly what that would mean. We haven't dealt with contradictory language between bills and NRS before. So this is something that I think, I believe, as I believe the intent was, I think we are good. It's just that this has come up from the original SB 543 bill about the interpretation of what that ending fund balance means. So we'll be continuing to look into that. We're 9 months past the end of the legislative session at this point, so it's frustrating that we don't have a definitive answer on this yet. But hopefully, in the near future, we'll make adjustments as we need to protect as much of that as we can. So, other funds. So as you know, we have 22 different funds that we manage. Some of the other primary ones, so I just learned today from the adult and prison ed programs, they've received their revenue numbers from the state, and they are in line with adult ed is actually a little bit above what is in this budget document. Prison ed is a little bit below what is in this document. So we'll make those adjustments as we go into the May original budget. Special education, we still have not received a dollar amount for funding for next year. I would expect in May we will receive that. So hopefully before we get to the budget hearing. Nutrition, again, the governor announced that the state was going to be covering the cost of meals for students over the next 2 years using some of their ESSER funds, but we still don't have any details as to how that mechanism is going to work from the state. The last thing I wanted to note that's significant, if you go to page 60 in the budget document, there is the capital improvement plan. So the district, the school board is required to have a capital improvement plan. And you've seen this before. It goes out 5 years, and that's a part of the requirement as well, showing all the funding sources available and how its use is intended. As you know, for many years prior to COVID, well, I think a year prior to COVID and then a little bit through COVID, we were interested in looking at and gathering information on the property at 1600 Snyder Avenue over on the south side of town. That now through COVID, clearly there was other items to be dealing with. That property, our understanding is now that has been leased away. So we had approximately just shy of $7 million set aside to potentially purchase that property and do some renovations on it. And so it gives us that, or frees up that money, but we don't exactly have the projects lined up for otherwise how we would use that. That went through a long process where we decided this was what we wanted to do, and then, you know, again, COVID happened and things kind of changed. So the point to that is, coming up here in the near future, we will need to reconvene the Facilities Master Plan Committee. And Mr. Cornick and Mr. Johnson are feverishly working on coming up with a revised list of projects that should be considered in the district based on different priority levels, different need, and different costs. And so once that committee comes together, once we're ready with all that, they'll come back to that committee, and it's usually not a one meeting event. It usually takes some time to go through all these, and there's a lot of questions that come up in that process. But then ultimately defining what those future projects for the district should be, or I should say what the recommendations are, and they bring those back to you then as recommendations to be approved and added into this document. Yep.
I remember this summer we were talking about the price of lumber and resources really affecting how much the expansion on Eagle Valley was going to be. And so how much of these funds would be needed to kind of cover that?
So where we are right now, we have the final costs of Eagle Valley covered. The maximum price we have, our CMAR company, Core Construction, they've been able to hold all those costs for us. The bigger issue for them, because they built in expecting some escalation in costs, the bigger issue for them was getting supplies in a timely manner. And so you look at this Gantt chart that they had put together of the entire process of construction, and it got changed so much it was almost meaningless. They had to completely move around the order and timing of how that happened. So truly this little less than 7 million is not obligated in any way to any other project at this point. So it's really some other things that we could do in the district that otherwise need to be dealt with. We know that we've had some roofing surveys district-wide over the years and paving surveys, so we know there'll be things like that, but there's probably, maybe some heating and air conditioning projects around the district otherwise that we can consider, and I know there's more. The one other thing I would mention, and that's not considered here, but just for your information at this point, we do have the potential to bond this year. We've had a couple of bonds finish up, which has freed up some funds for us. So in the event that in the Facilities Master Planning Committee, we decide that there is a need beyond that $7 million, we would have the opportunity to bond. Considering the uncertainty there is in the world at the moment and the rates as they continue to rise, not that it's the same thing, but a 30-year mortgage now is over 5%, which historically is really low, but in recent history, that seems really high. So those rates ultimately all filter through, and we're seeing higher rates in the public bond markets as well. So, but it is something that is a possibility if we decide to go that route.
So now that they've started building on the Lampa property, are we still granted in that acre or whatever they were promising us first?
Yeah, so
10 acres.
we met with, or spoke with the city some months ago about that. So as far as we understand and they understand that 10 acres is available or is still set aside for us. I think COVID really messed with the timeline of how that would happen and how the properties started getting built. It's interesting, and I think in some of the ways that you see with Eagle Valley and the problems we had, some of those properties in the Lampa Ranch, I remember at the beginning of the school year, they started going vertical very quickly. I don't know that actually one of them is really done or occupied yet. And so it's kind of strange. And I remember speaking with the developer from Ryder Homes years ago, saying that, if we're really moving, we'll put up 5 new homes every month, and that's clearly not where we are. So I would assume some of the materials issues are probably impacting them, and having starting costs at well over $500,000 is difficult too, maybe for on the sales side. So, but yeah, that land is still set aside, and it's something that we need to revisit with the city about what that is going to look like now that things are starting to normalize. And there's a with each sale, there's a small amount of money that we receive that would help us ultimately pay for that property. So the initial way it was laid out, the price of that 10 acres was $2 million, but we would collect approximately $1.8 million to help offset the cost of that, kind of in the way it would work out. So.
That's a property by the high school, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Did they get the easement to go out by Gold Dust?
No.
Because wasn't that contingent on the property, Mr. Stokes?
I remember meeting with the developer along with Mr. Fueling and other members of our team, and they said at that time if there was not a way to get access from the northern part of the district's property out to Highway 50, then that northern part of the development would not likely happen. So again, that was just prior to COVID happening. We've really not heard back from the developer. And so all of the movement and building at the site seems to be happening right there, very close to where Carson High School is. So there's been no inroads or efforts that I'm aware of that would indicate that they've gotten that easement between that northern part of the Lampa Ranch out to Highway 50. That's still up for grabs.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. So that is all I have for the evening. If there are any questions, otherwise I'd be happy to answer them.
AJ, I just wanted to add, since Trustee Walker asked a question about inflated costs, I guess to Core's credit, they've done a good job in budgeting for this, even though the costs have gone up. I can tell you asphalt, normally base and everything runs about $3.50 a square foot. It's up over $6 a square foot right now. You know, per square foot, it's gone up $3. So, you know, figure how much that is if you have to pave a half a mile of asphalt. And when you look at that, all the other costs have gone up as well. So costs, I don't know if they're going up as fast as they were, but they're going up quite a bit.
Yeah, even prior to COVID, we had concerns about the cost escalations. Mark Johnson, and there's something, I think it's called the Construction Cost Index, something along that line. And costs over the prior 3 years had been averaging or in the range of 11 to 15%. So clearly well ahead of what normal inflation is, and now it's only been exacerbated.
Any other discussion from the board? Lupe, you have anything? Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. No, I don't have anything else.
All right, seeing no further discussion from the board, appreciate the work you've done. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 10, which is the approval of the consent agenda. This is for possible action, so public comment will be taken to prior any action. So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second by Laurel. Any in-person public comment on the agenda? Seeing none, close public comment in person. Any online public comment?
No, Mr. Varner, thank you.
This time we'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say
Aye.
nay. Seeing none, motion carries 7-0. Move on for informational items. Item number 11. People can go ahead and read those. And I don't think we need to spend much time on those. And we'll go on to agenda item number 12, requests for future agenda topics. Stacy?
Now that we have the superintendent thing sewn up, I'd like to work on the evaluation. We talked about redoing that and formalizing so that we have more goals and more data to put towards it. So I'd like to start working on that.
We can put that on the one of the near future agenda items. Thank you.
Rich,
It's brought up at public comment, should be
Right.
put on an event.
yeah, Rich, just two things, just to
ahead.
follow up on what Stacy said. I think the order of it, we probably should have a conversation of the strategic plan updates with the superintendent evaluation updates, because, you know, we've been talking about, at least some people have been talking about measurable output goals and things like that. And so it would be good to have those in place so that as we set the superintendent's evaluation, we have, you know, something a little more definitive to measure that person against. And then, oh yeah,
Just wondering, we might need some community forums to kind
I
of
think
get
so.
information. If we just made a strategic plan, we wouldn't have quite as much.
no, I think it should be a process with the community and whatnot, but I just want to get that on the radar that, you know, we need to discuss how we're going to go forward with that.
Thank
And then
you.
the only other thing I had was one of the commenters today, public commenters, talked about that Family Life Committee. And I know a while back, we had discussed, and I believe through one of us got with Mr. Russell on, you know, our role and how this is working. And if it has to be approved by us, how does it come before us? So I'm not sure if we ever closed a loop on that, but I'd like to make sure we're, you know, we kind of finish addressing that and we know
Right.
where we stand.
We'll go ahead and put that on a future agenda item also. It appears to me, if the research I've done, is that it should come before the board for approval. Both their bylaws and the NRS, to me, made it pretty clear. So it's something that will get settled here in the near future. Any other, Lupe, you have anything?
No, I do not.
All right, thank you. Any further comments from the board? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and call for adjournment. And the time is 7:59. Thank you.